Mira learned about the betrayal on an ordinary evening, which made it worse. The office was almost empty, lights dimmed to save power, the city outside glowing with restless movement. She stayed late as usual, not because anyone asked her to, but because the project felt like a part of her. It had begun as a rough idea scribbled in a notebook and had grown under her care into something powerful. She trusted the process. She trusted the people around her. That trust would cost her everything. Her phone buzzed once. A short message from the IT system announced a shared folder update. Curious, she opened her laptop again. The folder name looked familiar, too familiar. It carried the internal code of her project. She hesitated, then clicked. Inside were files she recognized instantly. Her plans, her charts, her words. But the author name wasn't hers. It belonged to Arman. Her breath slowed. Fingers froze. On the trackpad, she told herself there had to be a mistake. Maybe it was a draft. Maybe he was helping. Mira scrolled, and each page crushed another piece of hope. The files were polished, finalized, and marked for executive review. Her name was nowhere. Memories rushed in without permission. Late nights when Arman brought coffee and praised her. Vision meetings where he nodded and took notes while she explained each step. Casual jokes in the hallway about how they made a good team. She had believed those moments meant something. Now they felt rehearsed, like a role he had practiced too well. She checked her email, searching for context for any clue she had missed. Buried between routine messages was one forwarded chain. It had been sent by mistake, copied to the wrong address. In it, Arman spoke with calm confidence to upper management. He described the project as his rescue mission, subtly framing Mira as overwhelmed and unfocused. He suggested she struggled with deadlines, implied she needed guidance. Mira closed her eyes. The quiet of the office pressed in on her ears. She had worked harder than anyone she knew. She had delivered every milestone early. She had defended the project when others doubted it. And now, with careful words and polite lies, Arman had rewritten the story. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling tiles. Anger didn't explode. It settled, heavy, sharp, controlled. She felt foolish for trusting him, but more than that, she felt erased. Betrayal hurt, but being replaced while still standing. There hurt more. When she finally stood up, her legs trembled. She gathered her bag slowly, as if moving too fast might make the truth unbearable. In the elevator, she watched her reflection in the mirror wall. Her face looked calm, but her eyes were distant, like they were already planning something. Drive home passed in a blur. Street lights streaked past her windshield. Every red light felt like an insult. At home, she didn't turn on the lights. She sat in the dark living room, replaying every moment she had shared with Arman, searching for the exact second he decided to take what wasn't his. Sleep didn't come. Her mind ran in circles, then straight lines, then sharp turns. She imagined confronting him, imagined his excuses, imagined his denial. She imagined shouting, then imagined silence. None of it felt enough. The next morning, she arrived early, earlier than usual. She wanted to see him before the masks went back on. She found him in the break room, relaxed, laughing softly at something on his phone. When he noticed her, his smile didn't change. That smile confirmed everything. "Morning," he said icily. "Morning," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm inside. They spoke about nothing, whether a meeting schedule. Lies stretched between them like thin glass. She watched him carefully, noticing how comfortable he was wearing success that didn't belong to him. That comfort felt like another betrayal. Throughout the day, whispers followed her, subtle glances, a shift in tone. The office had already adjusted to the new version of events. She was no longer the driving force behind the project. She was background, temporary, replaceable. During a team meeting, Arman presented her ideas with ease. He spoke confidently, using phrases she had once rehearsed alone in her apartment. When questions came, he answered them with her solutions. The room nodded in approval. Mira sat still, hands folded, heart pounding. She understood something then. This wasn't just ambition. This was strategy. Armin hadn't stolen her work. In a moment of weakness, he had planned this, slowly, carefully. He had earned her trust to gain access, then stepped over her once he had everything he needed. At lunch, she didn't eat. She walked outside instead, letting the cold air sharpen. Her thoughts? Anger tried to rise, but she pushed it down. Rage would make her careless. She needed clarity. By evening, the truth settled into a hard shape. Her career here was over. Even if she fought, the damage was done. Doubt had been planted, and doubt spread fast, but surrender wasn't an option. Not yet. She returned home with a new awareness. Betrayal had changed her, but it had also awakened something fierce. She opened her laptop again, not to cry, not to complain, but to remember. She began saving records, emails, drafts, timelines, every piece of proof she had once trusted others to respect. As midnight passed, her exhaustion turned into resolve. The pain was still there, sharp and real, but beneath it grew something colder and stronger. Armin thought Mira moved through the next days like someone living two lives. On the surface, she remained quiet, professional, and focused. Inside, her thoughts ran sharp and fast. Every word Armin spoke, every email he sent, every meeting he led felt like another reminder of what he had taken. She did not confront him. Not yet. Anger made noise, and noise warned enemies. She chose silence. She began watching instead. At work, she paid attention to patterns. Who Armin spoke to privately when he stayed late. How often he forwarded messages. To himself. She noticed how he changed his tone around managers, softer and respectful, while sounding firm and confident with the team. He was careful, but not perfect. Mira had learned long ago that people who believed they had won stopped guarding their backs. At night, her small apartment turned into a planning space. Her dining table filled with notebooks and printed emails. She organized everything by date, by topic, by relevance. Each file was a piece of her past, now turned into a tool. She worked quickly, not because she rushed, but because she was focused. This wasn't emotional chaos anymore. It was strategy. Yet the quiet hours brought questions she could not silence. She remembered Armand from his first week at the company. Nervous, eager, always afraid of being overlooked. She remembered how he spoke once about growing up watching others succeed while he stayed invisible. At the time, she had listened with sympathy. Now that memory twisted inside her. Was this his reason? Did fear push him to steal? Did pressure make him believe this was the only way forward? Mira hated herself for even asking. Understanding him felt dangerously close to forgiving. Him during one late evening at the office, she overheard him on the phone in a quiet corner. He spoke in low tones, tense but proud. He talked about how this opportunity would finally change his life, how he could not fail now. Mira stood frozen behind a glass wall, unseen. His voice carried urgency, not cruelty. That disturbed her more than any lie. For a moment, doubt cracked. Her resolve. If she destroyed him, would she become what he was? She exposed him? Would it heal her or trap her forever in this moment? The questions followed her home, sat with her during meals, lingered when she tried to sleep. Still, each morning she returned to the office with purpose. The whispers grew louder. Invitations stopped arriving. Her role faded. Colleagues treated her with careful distance, unsure where she stood. The isolation stung, but it also sharpened. Her focus, she had nothing left to lose here. She started having quiet conversations with former allies, not accusations, not complaints, just careful reminders of her involvement. She spoke calmly, confidently, planting seeds without raising alarms. Some listened, Some avoided her eyes. A few began to question what they had been told. Meanwhile, Armand thrived. His confidence grew with each compliment from leadership. He walked faster, spoke louder, smiled wider. He had stepped fully into the future he wanted, unaware of how fragile it truly was. Mira saw the cracks forming even as others admired the surface. Her plan was almost complete when she received an unexpected message from Armand himself. He asked to talk. Just the two of them. They met in a small conference room, glass walls, neutral space. He thanked her for her past work, spoke about moving forward, about teamwork. He suggested she might benefit from stepping back, recharging, finding new direction. His words were polite, but his meaning was clear. He was pushing her out. Myra listened without interrupting. She watched his hands, steady but tense. She saw fear flicker beneath his confidence. He knew she knew something. He just didn't know how much. When he finished, she smiled softly and thanked him for his honesty. She agreed it was time for change. Relief on his face was instant. He believed he had one. That night, Mira stood by her window, city lights stretching endlessly. Below, she felt the weight of her choice pressing down on her chest. Everything was ready. One message, one submission, and the truth would surface. The evidence would speak for her. Armand's rise would stop just as quickly as it began. But the closer she came to acting, the heavier her heart felt. Revenge promised balance, but also finality. Once she crossed that line, there would be no going back. She would always be the woman who destroyed another to save herself. She asked herself what she truly wanted: to hurt him or to reclaim herself, to win or to be free. Sleep finally came just before dawn, shallow and restless. When she woke, the decision still waited for her, patient and sharp. She dressed carefully, choosing calm over drama. She walked into the office with steady steps, carrying everything she needed. This was no longer just about betrayal. It was about who she would become when given the chance to strike back. The day moved quickly. Meetings blurred together. Emails stacked up. Mira felt detached, like she was watching events from outside her body. She knew the climax was close. The moment when thought would turn into action. As the afternoon sun dipped low, she sat alone at her desk, fingers resting on her laptop. The file was open, the evidence complete. Her heart beat steady, not fast. She was ready. But readiness did not mean the boardroom was colder than Mira expected. The glass walls reflected the late afternoon light, sharp and bright like the moment itself. She sat near the end of the table, hands calm, posture straight. Across from her, Armand stood beside the screen, confident, polished, fully settled into the role he had taken. The project glowed behind him, her work displayed under his name. The meeting began without ceremony. Numbers, forecasts, praise. Heads nodded, pens moved. Kara listened closely, not to the presentation, but to the room. She felt the shift in energy when Armand spoke. People believed him. Belief was powerful. It could bury truth if left alone. As he explained the final phase, he used a phrase Mira remembered writing months ago. Word for word, something tightened in her chest. The room blurred for a second, then snapped back into focus. This was it. The moment everything had been leading toward. Her laptop sat open in front of her. The file waited, clean, organized, undeniable. One click would send it to compliance, to leadership, to every person who needed to see it. She imagined the silence that would follow, the sudden turning of heads. Armand's pause, his confusion, his fall. Her pulse stayed steady. That surprised her. Armand reached the final slide. Applause followed, polite but strong. He smiled, satisfied. Then his eyes met Mira's. Just for a second, the smile faltered. He knew, not fully, but enough. Fear passed. Across his face like a shadow. The chairperson asked if anyone had questions. Mira stood. The room quieted. She felt every eye on her, waiting. This was the edge. This was the line between thought and action. She could feel the weight of the weeks behind her, the nights without sleep, the careful planning. Revenge stood ready, sharp and efficient. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. In that pause, something shifted. Not weakness, clarity. She saw the future that followed exposure. Endless explanations. Office politics, her name forever tied to scandal. Even if she was right. She would win, but she would stay here, trapped in the moment of betrayal. She saw another future too. One without applause. One where she walked away with her values intact. Where the truth still surfaced, but without her becoming its weapon. "I have no questions," she said calmly. The words landed softly, but the effect was loud. Armin's shoulders dropped slightly. Relief washed over his face. He thought it was over. The meeting ended. People filed out, conversations rising. Again, Mira packed her bags slowly. Her heart felt light and heavy at the same time. That evening, she didn't go home. She went to a quiet cafe and ordered tea she barely drank. She opened her laptop and reviewed the file one last time. The evidence was solid. The truth deserved daylight. But it didn't need her anger to carry it. She sent the file through. Official channels, anonymously, cleanly, without commentary. Then she closed her laptop. The next morning, she submitted her resignation. No accusations, no drama. Just a brief letter thanking the company for the opportunity and wishing them well. She felt a strange calm as she handed it in, like stepping out of a storm. Days passed. Then the emails began. An internal review, a request for clarification, a pause in the project timeline. Whispers returned, but this time they moved in a different direction. Armand stopped smiling. Meetings were canceled. Doors closed. Mira watched from a distance, not with joy, not with regret. Just awareness. When the investigation concluded, Armand was removed quietly. No public blame, no announcement, just absence. His name disappeared from emails the way hers once had. The cycle completed itself. The company reached out to Mira with apologies and offers a promotion, a new role, the chance to return. She read the message once, then declined. Not out of pride, but understanding. That chapter was finished. She took time off. She walked. She slept. She let the anger drain instead of feeding it. Some nights, the betrayal still surfaced, sharp and sudden, but it no longer controlled her. Mira learned that revenge often feels like strength because it promises control, but true control came from